I believed that losing my husband to another woman was as bad as it could be. Yet, as I stood in the magnificent ballroom and gazed at the radiant bride, the reality struck me as much worse. My ex-husband had fathered a child with his own sister. A golden light flooded from the chandelier above, as soft melodies floated through the air, and fine champagne effervesced in crystal glasses. However, beneath all the lavishness, there lurked a putrid secret, one they never expected me to uncover. That's when I saw it. The place card in my seat. Single mother. Waitress. A slow wave of laughter rippled through the crowd. Subdued in some corners, blatantly cruel elsewhere. I stayed still, did not pull out the chair, only stared at the derisive words in elegant script. It was as if turning me into a punchline at their wedding was the ultimate decoration to their flawless evening. Mom. Tyler's voice was soft but piercing. I looked down to see him standing by my side, his suit slightly too large, his tie a bit askew. He carried his father's distinct jawline and calculating eyes. But unlike Michael, my son was kind-hearted. Anger was swelling in that heart. I gently reversed the card. "It's nothing," I whispered, but Tyler understood better. He always did. On the opposite side, Beverly Clark watched us, adorned in silver, her pearls shining like trophies, a champagne flute precariously in her manicured grip. Her eyes caught mine. Her expression was small but cunning. She orchestrated this. Michael stood with her, holding a whiskey glass, appearing rigid. He wasn't laughing, nor was he stopping it. He never did. Then, there she was, Caroline, flourishing under the glamorous glow of the grand chandelier. Hands interlocked with her new husband's, basking in everyone's admiration, including those she had deceived in the room. James was unaware. He did not know the woman he just vowed eternity to had already made such a promise to someone else, who stood merely 10 feet away, observing, masked with the same feigned devotion I once misinterpreted as loyalty. Tyler's hand entwined with mine. His fingers, much smaller, were trembling with fury, not fear. I prepared for today, planned to suppress the embarrassment, withstand their jibes. But now, witnessing my son read that card, observing Beverly's smirk, watching Caroline and Michael act as if they hadn't wrecked everything, I recognized I couldn't depart without making sure everyone there knew the truth. The hall resonated with the gentle music of a violinist near the entrance as waiters in sharp black suits moved around, refilling champagne glasses. The fragrance in the air was of roses and roasted duck, the kind lingering long after the event ended. I sat down, smoothing the napkin over my lap. Tyler did not. His hands pressed on the table, his chin lifted, eyes locked on Michael across the room. "He's watching us," Tyler mumbled. I didn't raise my eyes, but I sensed it, the way Michael's gaze drilled into my face. Not once since our divorce 3 years ago had he looked at me with remorse. Not once had he attempted to mend the harm. But now, tonight, as his son stood by me, quietly aware of everything, he looked uneasy. A microphone cracked on. "Ladies and gentlemen," a voice broadcasted. "Beverly." Calmly, I forced my hands to relax as she stepped to the front stage of the ballroom. "First, thank you all for coming to celebrate this beautiful union of my daughter, Caroline, and her lovely husband, James." Her hand lay over her heart, pride brimming in her voice. The room applauded warmly. Not me. Beverly's eyes flickered towards me ever so briefly. I anticipated it before she even voiced it. "And, of course, we have a very special guest today." Her smile broadened. "Lauren, dear, it's great to see you. Wasn't sure you'd join us after all, considering everything." A ripple of laughter trickled through the guests. My heartbeat quickened. Next to me, Tyler's fingers gripped the table cover. "I must say," Beverly continued, "it's truly inspiring to observe how you've managed on your own. Raising a child can't be easy alone." Murmurs amplified. A few attendees leaned, whispers threading between them like daggers. I maintained a firm spine, remained silent, but Tyler lacked such patience. He rotated, climbed onto his seat, and seized a water glass, then slammed it on the table. The room fell silent. Hundreds turned their focus towards us. Mom. Tyler's voice was remarkably clear and firm. Will Aunt Caroline inform Uncle James about her baby, or should I? Silence gripped the entire ballroom. A waiter mid-pour froze with a champagne bottle over a glass. Someone coughed. A woman nearby gasped. Seated at a head table, Caroline's body stiffened. Her grip on James' arm became tense. James looked puzzled, glancing between his wife and my son. What? Caroline's eyes widened. He's joking, she claimed hastily, forcing a laugh. Tyler, dear, weddings aren't the place for. But Mom. Tyler pressed on, gazing at me with innocent eyes. Didn't we hear Aunt Caroline speak to Dad about it 3 days ago, when we delivered the RSVP? Michael leapt to his feet. Tyler's voice cut through the tension, commanding attention. Enough. His sharp tone rippled through the guests, leaving Caroline ghostly pale. Michael, sit down. But Michael remained standing, eyes fixed on Tyler, who had more to reveal. From his blazer pocket, Tyler withdrew a smartphone. I recorded it. His voice unwavering, he offered to play it. Panic flashed across Caroline's face. Tyler! Michael snapped, circling the table, footsteps echoing off the marble floor. Fast as he was, James was faster, seizing Caroline's wrist with a grip so tight it seemed his teeth would crack. What's going on? His voice was dangerously calm. Just kids' imaginations, she retorted, trying to free her hand. Tyler interjected, his voice firm. I'm not confused. The phone was raised, Tyler's finger tapping the screen. Static followed by rustling fabric, then Michael's voice. Be cautious. What if people discover you're carrying my child? A woman by the dessert table gasped, glass shattered, and the violinist's bow clattered to the ground. Caroline froze, breath caught in her throat, while James simply stared at his new bride. Beverly's voice broke the silence, a choked half-laugh. Is this a prank? Michael lunged for the phone, but I shielded my son. I gripped his wrist, keeping him from harm. James finally addressed Caroline, words barely audible. Is it real? The recording lingered like a gunshot, static followed by Michael's voice. Be cautious. What if people find out you're pregnant with my child? Clarity, undeniable. The room erupted into chaos. Gasps, whispers, the screeching of chairs across the marble. Even a waiter dropped a tray of glasses. But Tyler and I stood frozen as Caroline turned pale. Her mouth moved, but no sound came. Still, James remained fixed on his wife, his jaw tight, Michael lurching toward Tyler. Don't, I ordered, gripping Michael's arm. James, however, demanded the truth from Caroline, his grasp firm around her wrist. Disbelief in his voice, he pointed at her stomach. Were you going to let me unknowingly raise his child? His tone was bitter, his resolve firm. And then the worst came. Caroline snapped at Michael, enough to silence the room. James's gaze turned frigid, not anger, but something colder. You knew I'd find out. His voice low, he turned back to Caroline. You weren't going to confess. You planned to deceive me, and him. He gestured to Michael. A decision made visible in a nod. He slipped off his ring. Caroline didn't understand until he reached for her hand. Return the ring. Shocked, she hesitated. You can't be serious, James. This is our wedding. Stop and think. I am thinking. Cold iron in his tone. He spoke of marrying someone carrying another's child. And how, if he didn't leave, he might do something regrettable. His voice carried real threat. Caroline must have felt it, too. She tore off the ring, throwing it at him. It bounced off his suit, unnoticed on the floor. James held her gaze for a moment longer before turning and walking away. Caroline chased him, her dress caught on her heel. Wait, James, she pleaded. But he had reached the threshold. James pulled away from my grip and walked out, the door to the reception hall closing with a finality. Suddenly, the groom was just gone. Beverly, frozen in shock with her jaw slack for what seemed like ages, finally snapped, her anger directed at me. This is your fault, she hissed, advancing toward me with determined steps. You, and that little troublemaker of yours. You just couldn't bear to see us happy, could you? I chuckled quietly, my laughter sharp in contrast to Beverly's anger. Her eyes narrowed while I lifted my chin defiantly. "You brought this on yourselves," I retorted. Beverly's nostrils flared, and she opened her mouth, likely to unleash more of her rage, but she was interrupted by Tyler. "We weren't the ones sneaking around," he asserted strongly, stepping off his chair, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "We weren't the ones lying." A ripple of surprise ran through the gathered guests. Beverly looked as if all the air had been knocked out of her. Her lips thinned to a hard line before she turned sharply to Michael. "Fix this," she demanded, but Michael's glance towards me spoke volumes for the first time that night. He looked afraid, truly afraid, for he knew there was no room left to repair anything. Not waiting to hear whatever excuse he might muster, I grasped Tyler's hand and headed toward the exit. The whispers in the room were alive, buzzing as people leaned in to murmur. "Did you hear? Could it be true?" Yet none of that mattered to me. I was done. Just as I reached the exit, a hand gripped my arm. It was James again. His suit was disheveled, his tie hanging loose around his neck, but his gaze was steady as he spoke in a hoarse voice. "Thank you for telling me." I nodded, my eyes slipping past him to where Caroline had collapsed into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably. Michael hovered over her, raking his fingers through his hair in desperation. Beverly's gaze was fixed on me with a look that retained its sharpness. Her mask had cracked slightly, but not entirely. I knew there wouldn't be any easy truce with her. She wasn't the type to let go of grudges, and neither was I. Casting her a final glance, I stepped through the doors with Tyler by my side. Predictably, we hadn't even made it past the grand ballroom doors before an authoritative voice pierced the murmur of guests behind us. "Stop them," it commanded. Without looking back, I recognized Beverly's commanding tone instantly. 2 hotel security guards swiftly blocked our path. Despite sensing Tyler's racing pulse through our joined hands, I felt a calm resolve from him. The security team stood, uncertain in their posture, unsure if they were entangling themselves in further trouble or simply doing their jobs. Beverly walked toward us with poise, her shiny silver dress catching the light in the ballroom. Her demeanor was composed, displaying a facade of dominance as she accused, "Lauren, discussing matters like this at my daughter's wedding and thinking you could just leave, a little naive, isn't it?" Michael still lingered near the head table, seeming to nurse a growing headache, while Caroline was crumbled into tears. Yet, Beverly seemed energized, ready for her next strategic play. I calmly rebuffed her attempt to control the situation. "This doesn't seem like a hotel that permits unlawful detainment, Beverly." Unfazed, Beverly replied, "You're not confined here, dear. Just I'm addressing claims before more rumors amass." Tyler's voice cut in, "We have evidence. You all heard the recording." Beverly's lips curled into an unsettling smile, constrained but provocative. "Did we?" As another man in the crowd spoke up in agreement, the collective momentum shifted. Taking a verbal swipe, Beverly sneered toward me. How believable that an 8-year-old expertly captured such revealing evidence, surely as if orchestrated. The murmurs from guests now filled with skepticism, doubts lingering in their atmospheres, showed Beverly's intent not to protect her family, but to transfer blame upon me. In slow steps, Beverly capitalized on the guests' hesitation, spinning her narrative among her nearest allies. "It's curious, isn't it? How Lauren conveniently recorded events unfolding, almost as though by design." Remaining composed, I countered, "Your daughter and son weren't as inconspicuous as they believed." Tyler wasn't deceived. Beverly pressed further. "Do you genuinely think all here are fooled? Your intentions were clear from the onset." Pivoting from me toward the gathering, spreading her hands to address the guests. "Ever since the divorce, it's clear that Lauren has been harboring resentment, and given her circumstances of raising a child alone while watching her ex-husband move on with a younger, more beautiful woman, who could blame her?" James's voice cut through the air, enough to halt Beverly's speech momentarily. Positioned just within the ballroom's entrance, James stood with a loosened tie and a tense jaw, yet he hadn't departed. Our eyes briefly met before his gaze swung to Beverly. "You're actually doing this?" Beverly swiftly regained composure, turning towards him with feigned maternal concern. "James, dear," she began, "I understand how hard this is for you, but you must recognize the situation here. She's using this marriage to exact revenge." A dry chuckle escaped James. "Do you mean to tell me that? She manipulated him?" "That boy just saved me," he retorted bluntly. The whispers among the guests rose again, signifying a shift in the atmosphere, which Beverly also sensed. Her lips tightened as her facade began to fracture. In a final gambit, she questioned, in a voice that grew softer yet more sinister, why Michael hadn't corroborated these claims. My attention, along with everyone's, turned to Michael, who had remained silent. Caroline was crouched by him, eyes darting nervously between her family members, seeking escape. Michael paused, his jaw set and his shoulders stiff, before locking eyes with me, indicating his intention to deceive. Beverly had driven him into a corner, and Michael, known for his cowardice, was about to speak when James intervened swiftly, seizing Michael's collar. "Say it," he demanded. "Say it to my face." Michael paled as he stammered, "It's true," which ignited another wave of commotion. After shoving Michael, James's anger didn't subside, while Beverly erupted, her composure shattered. "You're not destroying this family over some mistake," she declared with finality. James scoffed, his laugh devoid of humor. "Mistake? Is that what you're calling it?" Neither Michael nor Caroline nor Beverly offered a response. Beverly's expression locked in disbelief, as if this wasn't how she had planned the outcome. In her eyes, she was supposed to prevail, to twist the narrative to her advantage, yet nothing remained for her to rewrite. Her poise, so meticulously maintained, crumbled as she looked from Michael to Caroline to James and finally to me. That's when I realized, for Beverly, this was far from over. She wasn't defeated. She was regrouping, and based on past knowledge of her, revenge was imminent. This was only round one. In hindsight, I should have anticipated Beverly's refusal to let it go. The wedding had indeed become a catastrophe. James was gone. Caroline was inconsolable. Michael had succumbed to the pressure. But Beverly, she was no ordinary woman to concede defeat easily. As Tyler and I exited the hotel that night, her eyes practically burned into my back, devoid of tears or fury, just calculation. Within 2 days, her scheme became apparent. It commenced with my job. Arriving at Maple Diner at 6, just as I had for the past 7 years, I found the morning as quiet as usual, with truckers and early birds lingering over their coffee. Behind the counter, I had barely donned my apron when Earl, my manager, emerged from his office with a grave expression. "Lauren," he began as if clearing a path for difficult words, "we need to talk." A heavy feeling settled in my gut as I trailed him to the office, its musty scent of aged receipts and burnt coffee enveloping us. He closed the door solemnly, visibly troubled before addressing me. "I received a call this morning," he confessed, "from someone who matters." Silence for me. Earl continued, "They've brought severe allegations against you, asserting you've caused a violent scene at a private function, that you've harassed your ex's family even." He paused, embarrassment creeping in, "claims you mistreat your child." The statement sent a chill through me, freezing every muscle, the air thickening in my lungs. Earl lifted a calming hand. "Listen, I don't believe it at all. Your track record here speaks volumes about you being a dedicated worker and an incredible mom." Yet the insistence in his voice carried the weight of a powerful, financially endowed opponent. Beverly's involvement was unmistakable. Her underhanded aim wasn't merely to humiliate me but to fully ruin me, Earl admitted. She even threatened legal measures unless you're dismissed and promised sizable donations to our owner, insinuating potential reputational damage should you remain employed. A bitter wave washed over me. "What does this mean?" I posed numbly. Earl, visibly pained, replied, "It means I have to let you go." I left Maple Diner in a state of shock, the sun piercingly bright, the world persisting in its mundane rhythm as my life crumbled. Beverly's vendetta wasn't settled, and the realization of her lengths to ruin me crystallized when I picked Tyler up from school that afternoon, where Ms. Reynolds's welcoming demeanor was replaced by an uneasy caution. "Lauren, Can we talk in private? A familiar, dreadful feeling crept up my spine. Despite a frown, Tyler made his way to the playground, his backpack casually slung over one shoulder. Following Miss Reynolds into her office, she closed the door gently behind us. She began, a bit too softly, "I got a phone call today. It came from a woman identifying herself as your former mother-in-law." I exhaled slowly, asking, "What did she say?" Miss Reynolds informed me she lodged a complaint, accusing me of being emotionally unstable and alleging that I was using Tyler to seek attention. She even insinuated that Tyler might not be safe in my care. The room felt suffocating. Miss Reynolds elaborated with caution. She mentioned Beverly was considering legal action for custody. "She aims to take my son," I said, my voice steady yet quavering beneath. "I don't know her, Lauren, but I know you and Tyler." Miss Reynolds held my gaze. "He's among the most well-adjusted and kind-hearted students I've ever taught." I shared, a lump forming in my throat. "She pressed me," Miss Reynolds admitted, intending for me to say something negative. "I didn't comply, but advised you to be cautious. Beverly wasn't merely attempting to take my son. She was on a mission to achieve it." That evening, my laptop provided the sole light in the darkened apartment, casting flickers across the walls. Tyler, blissfully unaware, slept peacefully in his room. I focused on the search bar, fingers hovering, typing, "family lawyers in Boston." I prepared for battle, knowing Beverly had finances, connections, and a vendetta since her wedding fiasco. Beverly believed she had checkmated me, having already taken my job and now Tyler. Had I been anyone else, her plan might have succeeded. However, she underestimated me. Sleep eluded me as I worked through the night, Tyler secure in his bed, calling in favors, researching loopholes, and planning counterattacks. The following morning, I found myself in the office of Andrea Marquez, a top family lawyer in Boston, known for her fierce approach. "I want full custody," I declared, "and I want them legally prevented from future attempts." She leaned back, considering. "That's quite a request." Meeting her sharp gaze, I presented evidence proving Beverly and Michael's fabrications against me. I shared testimony from Tyler's teacher, pressured into false claims, and footage from their wedding disaster. Andrea's lips curved into a satisfied smile. "Tell me everything," she invited. The court hearing was scheduled. 2 weeks later, Beverly and Michael arrived, flanked by a powerful legal team, exuding confidence in designer suits. Sitting beside Tyler, who remained calm, the proceedings began. Their lawyer opened, "Your Honor, this is a case of an unstable mother weaponizing her child against her ex-husband's family. He accused me of outbursts, fabricating evidence, and exploiting Tyler for revenge, having multiple witnesses to testify." I waited patiently, letting them speak, watching Beverly's smug composure. Then I gave my lawyer a flash drive. She approached the judge. "Your Honor, we submit into evidence surveillance from the Grand Harbor Hotel." Michael's expression tightened. Beverly remained still, perhaps in denial. The judge nodded, allowing it. The courtroom screen projected clear footage of Beverly passing cash to a witness, claiming misuse of Tyler. Silence prevailed. My lawyer announced, "The other party attempted to bribe testimony against my client." This footage captures the transaction. The judge's demeanor hardened, turning to Beverly's lawyer for an explanation. Michael fidgeted nervously while Beverly remained motionless, devoid of a credible excuse. Rising, I addressed the court. "Your Honor, I have further evidence," with Tyler's teacher prepared to testify about Beverly's coercion attempts. Miss Reynolds confidently took the stand, recounting the attempts to cast Lauren as an unfit mother, affirming her refusal. That revelation sealed the case. The judge leaned back, considering Beverly intently, before delivering his verdict. Full custody awarded to me. Michael lost all legal rights, and Beverly was banned from any legal interference. Additionally, the judge reported Beverly's bribery to the state bar, jeopardizing more than just her case. Outside the courthouse, Michael departed without a word, leaving Beverly motionless. Passing her, I caught her gaze. "You tried," I remarked simply. "You lost." Holding Tyler's hand, We walked away liberated. Was this the justice Beverly deserved? Should Lauren have